Kakadosh, Boker Tov, good morning. We wanted to speak a little bit about Hanukkah. In order to understand, we know that Hanukkah took place during the second temple, the end of the second Bet HaMikdash, but I think that we don't fully understand or comprehend what took place during those days. So in order to understand, this is during the Greeks. The Greeks were in control for 52 years. 52 years they took control out of everything that we did. During those days, we became very weak in our services to God. And because of that, we were punished until the Hashmonaim came with all their Mesirut Nefesh, with all their utmost devotion, and they fought against that ideology, and then they were able to win. During that period in time in history was when we had the start of everything that has to do with, we're going to call it kfirah. Kfirah is anything which has to do with going against the religion. The heretics. We know that Antignoshi Soho, he had two students called Tzadok Ubaitus, the Sadducees and the Baituses. The Sadducees and the Baituses, they really went against everything in the religion. But they know that if they're going to preach against the religion, nobody's going to listen to them. So what did they do? They said to everybody, they believe in Torah Shebichtav. The written Torah they believe, even though they didn't. But then outwardly, they only went against the rabbis. They went and they fought it very hard, and they were converting a lot of people to their group. Also, right, there was another one. And this is basically the start of the student of Yoshua ben Perachia, that was during the time of Nitaya Beli, which basically was the beginning of the Christianity. That happened during this period of time. So imagine how much or how many people were being drawn towards the Sadducees, towards Christianity, and towards all these other religions during this time. What were the tzaddikim doing? The tzaddikim kept quiet. Rav Elia Lopian, the Mashiach, he comes and he says, they kept quiet, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if you keep quiet when the religion is being challenged, I will keep quiet. And even if the Bet HaMikdash will be destroyed, I'm going to keep quiet. So then even more than that, do you know that during this period of time, even the Keuna Gedolah, even the Kohanim Gedolim were part of the Greeks, meaning they were part of the Greek ideology. And that's why we said, if you remember when we were learning the Gemara, we said that throughout the second Bet HaMikdash, there was a period of time that every single year, there was a new Kohen Gadol. Why? Every year it came Kippur, and the Kohen Gadol would not come out of the Kodesh HaKodashim. He would go in and drop dead. They had to pull him out with a rope. Do you know that they did this with the Baba Sali? When Baba Sali came into Tzfat, he went to Tzfat once. He went to the Bet HaKnesset of the Arizal HaKadosh. And until then, the Bet HaKnesset of the Arizal HaKadosh was always closed. And what happened was that he went to the Parnas. He went to somebody that he, old man, that he had the key. And he told him, listen, open up. I want to go inside. He says, no, I don't open up for anybody. No, open up, this and that. He said, you know how many people have gone in and they've never come out? No, open it up for me. He says, okay, fine. He comes, he opens it up. They put a rope around the Baba Sali, expecting that he wasn't going to survive. And he went in, he was doing tefillot there, and then he came out. When he came out, he said, now everybody could come in and pray here. They opened up the synagogue from then on. What happened? It was such a powerful place of Kiddusha. A person would walk in, if he wasn't fitting, he wouldn't walk out alive. Drop dead. That's a Kodesh HaKodashim, the Holy of the Holies. So what happened is that during that period, the Greeks were the one in charge. Who's the Kohen Gadol? Imagine right now, the Greeks are the ones in charge. Who's the chief rabbi? Who's the one that makes all the decisions? Who's the Kohen Gadol? The Greeks were the ones. Not only that, the guy himself was with the Greek ideology. So he says, imagine what it was then during that time. And there, it was incredible how so many thousands and thousands of people were leaving the religion. They were going to the Greek ideology. What was the Greek ideology? The Greek ideology is that God has nothing to do with this world. God created the world, and then he left it running. And God has nothing to do with us. What? God is going to start taking care of something so mundane? It doesn't make sense. So what happens? They come and they purposely wanted to show there's no God here. God is up there. That has nothing to do with this land. We do whatever we want down here. And that's why they came and they started making a whole bunch of decrees against us. They made a decree that any woman that would get married would first have to have relations with the Greek governor, right? Then they came and they said that they had to come and they started impurifying all the oil. They went and they wrote down on the keren of the shore, which means every person that had an ox, he would have to write down on the horn of the ox, I don't have a portion in the God of Israel. Mamash, they would have to do all these things to show they wanted to uproot everything that we had in our religion to show that there's no God with us. That's what they wanted to do. Fine. The Mashkiach, Rav Yechezkel Levenstein, he once said during Hanukkah, when they were in Shanghai, this is, the yeshiva of Mir ran away during the Holocaust, and they were all hurt of all the news. A lot of them, their family members perished, but they ran away with their yeshiva and they were able to get to Shanghai, and then they were able to go to different places. The Mashkiach once went and he said, right, he started speaking about the Chashmonaim. And he said the gezerot that were actually coming on towards us was in order to subjugate ourselves, to show that we sin, and we sin so much that it would be impossible to go back. They wanted us to purify, to get so impure, such a level that we would never be able to get saved by Hashem. And that's exactly what they wanted us to do. Let's just try to understand the galut. When we're in exile, there's two types of exiles. One of the exiles is that when we're subjugated, right? When we have all these types of, whether it's taxes or things that are put upon us, and we have to follow what the governing nation tells us. There's another type of a galut which is called dorosh shmad. Shmad is not against us as what we call the human beings, it's against a religion. Shmad is when they want to come and they want to uproot the religion from us. And here there are many, many different times that they came and they wanted to uproot it with everything until the core, that there's no religion. And that's what happened. If you think about it, right? It was not only just, it depends who it was. Sometimes it was only religion, a war against a religion. And sometimes it was a war against us, even without the religion. So here, they come and they say, right, like this. One of the greatest miracles that happened during that time is that Am Yisrael, after 52 years of being subjugated, we were still able to break free. Because usually, right, what happens is that, what is the difference when we talk about breaking free? Imagine how many years being subjugated that you're accustomed to something. Your own children, and sometimes even grandchildren by the time you're 50 years old, right? They were already brought up this way. They lived it. They don't know any different, but they were able to break free and break out. That is so important just for us to understand. So what happened is that all of a sudden you have what's called, right? All of a sudden, everything changed in one moment. Everything. Matatiyahu came and he changed it into a milchama, milchemet HaKodesh, a war, a holy war, a war of completely against them. And it was incredible that they were able to come and to subdue. If you think about it, the Greeks, they were in charge of everything. They had the world, they had everything under them. Right? They were the powerful nation. And all of a sudden we came and we were able to overcome them. After so many years, right, that the Jews were completely under them, all of a sudden you have an elderly Jew called Matatiyahu, and he goes against an entire empire, which they were the ones, Milchemet LaHashem B'Amalek. Without looking at the right or the left, he didn't care. And there was only one thing, to sanctify the name of God. He didn't care. He's going to die, but that's not his problem. He has to go to battle. He has to go to war. So anybody that's going to think, right, says the Mashkiach, he says, how could it be that so little amount of people came and they overpowered such a great nation? It doesn't even make sense. But the answer is that when you start a war and you don't think about whether you're going to win the war or not, all your kavanah is l'shem shamayim, then, right, it's only for the sake of heaven. That's how you're going to win no matter what. And now we understand when it says, Hachashmonaim, bigvuratam, with their strength, be'ometz libam, with the courage of their heart and their emunah, they went and they did a war. right? Al rifiona yadayim v'ashlama mitziut. They went and they did a war. You know what the war was? With empathy, with passivity, which means certain people, right? You come and you tell them, listen, why are you letting this happen? So listen, what can we do? That's been the situation already for a long time. They live with it. They complete with it. They're at peace with it. They give up, as they say. He says, no, that's a mistake. They went and they went against that. Mattatyahu and his children taught us for generations the power of an individual. Why? Don't ever be succumbed to the majority. Don't ever give in, even though they're all there. Meaning the concept of if you can't win them, join them is wrong. It's pasul. It's disqualified. Because if you can't win them, you fight against them no matter what, even if you can't win them. And you will win them. Because that's exactly what happened. He says, don't think that you're having the milchama is the entire world. The mitziut, the reality, did not change what Mattatyahu was going for. And even the success rate, right, didn't even bother him. He went with one thing and one thing only, the truth. And only that. And he gave his entire life for only the truth. That's all that happened. Everything else, it doesn't matter. But you don't need that. The Saba Minovardok once said, I never think about whether I can do something or not. I think, am I obligated to do it? And if I'm obligated to do it, so then it's automatically that I can do it. Did you hear those words? Those words are gold. I once met a mashkiach, no, actually he was a shiva of one of the yeshivot in Manchester. I met him in an airport in Eretz Yisrael. I was going back. I don't remember if at the time I was going back to Gibraltar, I was coming to America. I met him. I said, how are you doing? This now we started speaking. He told me, I came in this morning and I'm leaving now. I said, what does that mean? You were there for a day. You know, you traveled the entire distance and everything from England to Israel for the day. Yeah, 100%. But when I get back, immediately once I get back, it's already time for shiur. So I have to go straight to the yeshiva, give shiur, then after, and I'm like thinking, I said, wow, but what gives the Rosh Yeshiva the strength to do this? So he says, in my profession, I have to understand, am I obligated to or not? Just like what he said now. Meaning, if I'm I don't look at, can I do it? If you look at something and you take the approach, can I do something? That's wrong. First, look at the approach, am I obligated to do it? If I'm obligated to do it, you can do it. Because Hashem gives you the strength to do it. Because if you're obligated to, that means obviously you have the strength to do it. And that's what the Sabbath and Nevardik was actually trying to come and to say. Because that's where it was, right? Where a person puts their potential, maximizes their potential to the utmost. These words are also brought down in the Shem Yishmuel. The Shem Yishmuel comes and he says, Kol inyanam haya ol malchut shamayim beli cheshbon. Everything that they did was only receiving themselves the yoke of heaven without any calculations. So he says, if there's going to be a toilet or not a toilet, meaning, are they going to gain something? A lot of people, they want the name of this. So fine, they're going to blow themselves up, or they're going to go to war, but at least people should remember them. No, they didn't do anything for self-interest. They were just doing it to serve God, for God, not for themselves. They didn't do it for their name. They didn't, nothing. They have to go to war, they went to war. And therefore, the choshech, this darkness of the Greeks, that they didn't have the power to darken in front of their eyes. And they came with their mesirut nefesh on Kiddushat Hashem, and therefore there's nothing that's a chatzitza, there's nothing that's a separation between them, and that maybe they're going to be killed by the Greeks, because they weren't afraid of death. And it says, Vitkayem Bahem, and that's a pasuk in Yeshaya that it says, Ha'ama ulchim b'choshech ra'u or gadol. The nation that they go in darkness, they see a lot of light. We have to remember that Hanukkah, why is it called the festival of lights? The Goyim, they wanted to copy us. So immediately also, they put lights, but they want to do it much better. So they put all these lights, and everywhere you go, you see lights, right? And you have it around trees and around this. but it comes from us. It doesn't come from them. They copied us. But we have the Chanukiah. Why is it bemet that we do the Chanukiah? We should have done like what they did. They took what we did and they just magnified it. It's like the US and China. They take everything that the US has in stealth and everything in weapons, and then they just make it better. So they steal it, right? And then they just make it better. So therefore, what's the problem then? Why couldn't we do the exact same thing? Rather, Chachamim come and they say very simple. And we just answered it. A little bit of light is doche harbe choshech. A little bit of light already pushes away a lot of the darkness. If somebody asks you right now, does the moon illuminate? Does the moon have light? You would say the truth is you go outside. Is there a difference if it's cloudy or not cloudy? No difference. You go outside, there's so much light around you, you don't even see the moon anymore. You don't even see the stars. The stars, you hardly see stars. You look outside, you hardly see stars. Why? There's so much light around, you can't see it. But go in the middle of the desert, go on the sea, and then what happens? All of a sudden you look up and you say, wow, I never knew the moon could give off so much light. I never knew that a star, that there were so many stars in the sky, and it could give so much light. What's going on? The artificial light, the fake light, like fake news, that's going all around, it blurs our vision. We can't see straight. The purpose of Hanukkah was not a show of lights. It wasn't fake. It wasn't the show off of lights. It's teaching and representing the light of the Torah, the light of the Jewish soul, the light of everything that we have, the Torah. When we come, all we need is a little bit of that light. And that little bit of light could actually come and illuminate everything in this world. But we're blurred. We come and we see, beside the Chanukiah, we see other lights. And Bavonotenu Arabim, sometimes you even have it, sometimes in the same place. Like it became something accepted that you have a tree, and then you have a Chanukiah. And it's one beside each other. And they both have lights. But obviously, the tree has much more lights. But it's not true lights. Once happened that a rabbi went to a shiur and he saw it and he was shocked. He went to somebody's house and he was giving a shiur on kiruv, trying to bring people to do teshuvah from arachim. And all of a sudden he saw both of them right in front of his face. So he comes and he changed his entire shiur. And he started and he was very upset. And all of a sudden, right, in the middle of the shiur, when he's basically telling them off about how could they even think about such a thing, there was a power outage. And what happened with the power outage? There was no lights on the tree. But the lights of the Chanukiah were illuminating the lights for everybody. And that's what he went and he told to everybody. This is the message that we have to learn from this. The message is that the real lights are the lights of the Chanukiah. You don't need to show off. We don't need to come and to start making these things. We need the Chanukiah. That little light, the true light though, is what actually comes and illuminates the entire world. You don't need anything else. The Hashmonaim, they came and they were teaching us that same message. The achrayut, the responsibility of kavod shamayim. It says over here, the Mashkiach Rav Yechezkel Levenstein comes, he says, when they were moser nafsho, if a person would come and he would put his mind only on the respect of the shamayim of Hashem, if he feels that there's going to be a chilul Hashem, a desecration of the name of Hashem, so then he will find inside of him strength that he never thought he even had. And he says that then he could actually win the war and get out of any suffering. That's why it's so important to understand what happened, because they went without cheshbonot, without anything. You just go out and that's it. Don't worry about anything else. Now we're going to speak about the miracle of the Pach HaShemen, the miracle of the jug of oil. We always ask ourselves, why is it that they only found one jug of oil? Right? Why couldn't they find even a few of them? Enough for a few days. So then we don't need even the miracle. So why wasn't there a miracle that at least they should find enough? Meaning if there was already such a big miracle and they won the war, they won the battle. So fine, they found one jug of oil. Find 8 jugs of oil for the 8 days until they have time to purify everything, and then they could start reprocessing and they start doing all these things. Why? That's what should have been the miracle. But rather, there's something very important Why is it that there was such a small amount of oil? To teach you that through one jug of oil, they were able to bring back the entire avodah, the entire service of the Bet HaMikdash, through one small jug, one little person. And that's for us to know that an individual should never minimize himself. Never think about your stakes and how you're going to succeed or not. Your obligation is to do whatever you can. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu helps you with everything else. And that's the shoresh, the root of the miracle of Hanukkah. It's basically the yachid, the individual, going against the world. That's what it is. Rabim yan muatim, the multitudes in the hands of few. You don't need big numbers. All you need is to win. You need the willpower. Many times people come and they think, you know what? Everything is a numbers game. It's not a numbers game. Israel has been surrounded by enemies for generations. We were outnumbered, not double, 20 times and 100 times, whether it was in the 6-Day War and the Yom Kippur War, but at the end of the day, we still won. Because it's not a numbers game. It's from your heart. Are you going to win or not? Don't pay attention about numbers. Numbers is nothing. And that's why he said that's what we're supposed to learn from the nest of the Pach HaShemen. Shtayim ra'ot matzu b'nei amenu lifnei 2,000 shana. When Antiochus, there were two bad things that happened. When Antiochus, the head of the Greeks, came, right? But he says, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu does everything in this world equally. What does that mean? There were also two miracles that happened as well. He went and he spilled tons of blood in Yerushalayim. They were killing, right? But then there was the miracle that also. He came and he desecrated the Bet HaMikdash, but then there was the miracle of the nest of the Pach HaShemen also inside. They went and they found this pure jug, and that's what actually was when Mesirun Nefesh. They didn't find it right away. They looked and they checked every single jug until they were able to find it. And that's a siman for dorot, that's a siman for generations, that we have to actually come and work and do our utmost. And that's when we get the miracles. The Mishpacha Matityahu, according to the amount of people that they were, some people say there were 13 people. You know what that is? A group of 13 people going out to war against thousands and thousands and thousands of legions of everything. You know what that is? But they were able to win. Why? Because again, when you have the will, you're able to do everything. Another important message that we have throughout the Chanukkah is Pirsum Nisa. We come and we light the candles, and it's in order to publicize the miracle. But if you realize, we also light the candles in the Bet HaKnesset, but we're also obligated to light the candles in the home. Why is it? Because we say Ner Ishu Beto. What does it mean, Ner Ishu Beto? It's a mitzvah to light it in your house. We want it in your house. However, though, the Ruach of the Yahadut, the spirit of the Judaism is the power of the house, of the Jewish house. Do you realize that the Goyim wanted to purify what it was, the power of the house, the Jewish house? Our mission is to sanctify the Jewish home. So therefore, it's not just enough to come and to light, whether it's going to be in the Bet HaKnesset. In our houses, we're going to have to come and we have to light it as well. Because it's not just enough for the outside. And even though the Goyim came and they purified and everything, we have to do that. So therefore it says, don't think that your house is so light in your eyes. Even if you're the last thing which is coming out from them, you have to come, and that's the Beit Yehudi, the house of a Jew. The house of a Jew has to be like the Maccabim. It has to be like against the Yevanim, to take away all the outside influence, to completely destroy everything that they wanted to instill inside of us. They wanted to make that everything was impure, impurity in everything. Think about it. They didn't let, right, the women purify themselves. They wanted to take away Brit Milah. They wanted to take away the Shabbat. They wanted that if somebody would get married, they had to go with the Hegmon, with the non-Jewish ruler first. They wanted to take away everything of purity in order to contaminate and in order to destroy the Jewish home. So therefore, they had to come and fight. And now we have to actually build the Jewish home. How do you build the Jewish home? It's not only just building it with sufganiyot. You don't build a house with sufganiyot. You know how you build the jelly donuts. You know how you build a home with the light of the menorah, with the light of purity, the Torah. Hiner mitzvah v'Torah or. The candles of the menorah, they reflect the Torah and the mitzvot. That's how you build the Jewish home. So the Shiltot says what happened was that they only had for one candle only. That's what they had, for one candle. They come and they want to light for one candle, right? And there was a miracle that it actually lasted for all the days. So everyone knows the famous question of the Bet Yosef, that nowadays there's, I think, a book that has 101 questions on the 101 answers on the famous question about why do we do Hanukkah for 8 days if the miracle was only for 7 days? Because they did find one jug of oil. So the miracle was for 7 days, not 8. So why do we do 8 days of Hanukkah? So as I already said, there's 100 questions, 100 answers on that question, right? Just to understand what we're talking about. Okay, but he says over here, the nest was only for 7 days. Because it was the first day, it wasn't a miracle. But according to us, it actually makes sense. Even the first day, there wasn't enough oil. Even for the first day, there was not enough oil. So therefore, even on the first day was a miracle. Why? Because the Shiltot of Rav Hai Gaon says, they only found one pach of shemen, that it had the signature, the sign of the Kohen Gadol. Velo haya bo lalik afilu yom echad. It didn't have enough even to light one day. And the miracle happened. So according to this, now it makes sense. Because now even the first day was a miracle. Why was the first day a miracle? Because they didn't have enough oil even for the first day. Okay? Still, so we still ask ourselves, so fine, so why did they actually light then? If the mitzvah of the menorah is from the nighttime to the daytime, so why did they fight? Why did they light? You're lighting a candle knowing that it's not going to light. So the answer is that that's the avodah of the Chashmonaim. The avodah of the Chashmonaim, the work of the Chashmonaim, was to go against, right? What was the Greeks? The Greeks were going against reality. So they knew that anything to do with spirituality, they were going to be influenced. So therefore, if they had such a small amount of oil, they're going to light it. Why? Because it doesn't matter about the Metziut. We have to do what we have to do. Reality, that's not our problem. Many times people think in Judaism, it's either all or none. And it's not true. I once heard a shiur of Rav David Peretz once. He came to Gibraltar and he was speaking and he was talking about people, let's say that they don't wear kippah all the time outside. So he went and he said, some people think, listen, if they don't wear kippah outside, so then don't wear it inside either. Wrong. Inside your house, you wear the kippah the entire time. Even if it's going to be outside that, the guy's embarrassed or he doesn't want to do it, he's working with but that doesn't mean that you're not going to do it. So some people think it's either all or none. That's incorrect. Why? Because we have to do our part. The rest we leave for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Matityahu ben Rai Chashmonaim, they knew there wasn't enough oil to light, not even for one day. So why did they light? The answer is you do your part. Leave the rest for Hashem. Your obligation. The rest, that's not your problem. And this was the derech of Abraham HaIvri. The Rambam says, Kevan shenigma letanzeh yitchil leshoteh b'dato v'hu katan. Avraham Avinu was very small. And he started thinking during the daytime, during the nighttime. He didn't have anybody to teach him. Right? But rather he was there in Ur-Kassim between the Ovdei Kochavim, his father, the mother, everybody, they were all serving idols. Until he comes and he says, there has to be one God. And he starts thinking, so he comes and he destroys everything. Right? As everyone knows. So, but the question is, why is the Rambam bringing this down? The Rambam is Halacha Sefer. It's a book of halachot. So why is he bringing this story down of Avraham Avinu? That he comes, he destroys the idols. What's going on? But rather the answer is the Rambam is coming to teach you halacha. In every single situation that an individual will be, doesn't matter when it is, if he's going to be in a situation like Avraham Avinu, and he's going to see that the generation are making a mistake, and they just don't have the wisdom, they don't know what they're doing. He has to put on his sword like Avraham Avinu, and he has to go and he has to fight until the finish. Which means that this is not only just a one-off that happened to Avraham Avinu. This could happen in generations, and that's what happened for the Chashmonaim. The Chashmonaim, they went and they realized, now we have to fight. There's nothing else what to do. If we continue like this, that's it. There's not going to be Judaism anymore. So they went for the fight. They became the Avraham Avinus. And anything to do with truth, you don't need proofs. A proof you only need when you don't know what the truth is. But if you know what the truth is, you don't need a proof. And that in essence is the concept of the Torah and the Chashmonim, what they were doing. They didn't need a proof to go out to war. They knew the truth, and they knew this is what they are obligated to do. So therefore they take upon themselves and they say, this is what we have to do. I hope everyone has a beautiful Hanukkah starting B'ezrat Hashem on Sunday night, and that we're able to give up everything that we have with all our motivation, with our devotion to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to go against this Greek ideology, which is current even until today, right? And then we understand what's going on B'ezrat Hashem.